Howdy, folks, and welcome once again to Omnium Gatherum TV. I'm your host, Vince Moore, and this is the Saturday Nights All Right for Reviewing segment for the 18th of April, 2015. First up, and a little bit of an improv away from my script. My shirt is courtesy of the fine folks at buyindiecomics.com. It's a site run by a friend of mine, Dale Wilson, that's normally known for doing reviews of independent books, hence its name, buyindiecomics.com. I'll have a link in the description so you folks can check them out. This time out, I will be reviewing a recent comic series that features an icon of pop culture, especially the genre of film known as blaxploitation. I'm talking about Shaft, that bad mother, and Black Private Dick, who's the sex machine to all the chicks. The fine folks at Dynamite Entertainment have brought Shaft to the comics page as part of an initiative to reintroduce the prose novels and character to a new audience, spearheaded by writer David Walker. Before I go any further with this review, I will make a couple of full disclosures. I have known David Walker for a number of years, perhaps 2 decades at this point. I met him when he was publishing Azz Mofo, his magazine about those blaxploitation movies at Comic-Con in the early 1990s. We became close friends ever since. I could not have been happier when I heard about his being involved with this project and wish him tons of success with his upcoming endeavors, including his run on DC's Cyborg series that's due to come out later this year. And the fine folks at Dynamite Entertainment published my first professional comics work, Total Recall, for which I will be eternally grateful. So my doing this review is of my own free will and accord, and that being said, let me dive into my review of Shaft issues numbers 1 through 3. Shaft, the comic book series, goes back to the origins of him as a private detective, how he came to be that sex machine and that bad mother that no one smart would have messed with if they knew better. A task that could have bogged down the comic in a historicity that might not have been much fun to read. That wasn't the case. We meet a young yet world-weary John Shaft after his time in Vietnam, struggling to find his way. That struggle brings him into contact with the bad guys that will play an important role in this origin story. In this way, we get an origin of the trouble in which Shaft ultimately finds himself, as well as his own origin. What I liked best about these first 3 issues is that they felt more like standalone issues instead of incomplete parts of a longer story, and that was a good thing. This allowed each issue to build its own separate story that added to both the origin of John Shaft as a detective and to the larger storyline. David's love for this character could not have come through in a better fashion. The lean dialogue and narration matched the private detective genre well. I also like that each issue ends with a common image, that of John Shaft standing. This common image of Shaft standing sets the stage for the next issue, as well as telling the reader that no matter the outcome or circumstances, the Black Private Dick knows what his next move is, even at this early stage in his career. As an added bonus, David gives his readers a list of songs that will act as a soundtrack for that particular issue. I'll have to go back and reread each issue once I put together the playlist to see how that works out. The art on this series is done by Bilquis Evely. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I found her art to be serviceable, if only a bit static when dealing with physical action scenes. Particularly in the first issue, there are 2 fight scenes that felt staged in a very static fashion. The overall page design worked, but the actual action within the panels was a little stiff for my liking. But what I did like about her art was that the black people have wide noses, except all of her characters have wide noses. I imagine this makes up for all of those comic artists that draw nothing but aquiline noses. The covers have been done by a cavalcade of superstar artists, from Dennis Cowan and Bill Sienkiewicz to Sanford Green, from Francesco Francavilla to Matt Haley, all of which look great, especially Sanford Green's Don't Shoot cover for issue number 2. The most important thing is I want to know what happens next in the story. I'm curious. That is the best recommendation I can give this book, that it makes the reader want to know what happens next. I give Shaft issues 1 through 3 a B+, which could go to an A-. For those of you who haven't tried this series yet, I recommend you go out and get it now and don't wait for the trade. That will do it for this edition of Omnium Gatherum TV. Until next time, thank you folks so much for watching. Namaste, y'all.